Lewis Hamilton wins! The first British driver to win in America for 24 years. He's conquered the United States on his very first visit.
Lewis Hamilton, already in the history books and dominating the headlines, moves 10 points clear of Fernando Alonso in the World Drivers' Championship. The Spaniard's frustration increases here at the French Grand Prix as problems send him back down a grid that's headed by Felipe Massa as Ferrari come back to form. But Hamilton is right alongside for the last French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours, and it could be one of the best.
It's round 8 of the Formula One World Championship, and after the domination by McLaren that's taken the amazing Lewis Hamilton to the top of the Drivers' Championship, this promises to be a very different kind of challenge. We've had rain, and there's more forecast with all the unpredictability that comes with it. We've got no real reason to talk or worry about McLaren team orders or team tactics, because at the front of the grid, we've got Lewis Hamilton against the combined might of the two Ferraris. So it's the great new star of British sport about to become a hero once again.
So in our race build-up, he's at the top of the World Championship, and at the moment he's master of all he surveys. Lewis Hamilton on life as a Grand Prix winner and how he's relishing taking the battle to Ferrari. They're strong again, as we thought they would be. Massa is on pole, but behind the scenes Ferrari have problems. Allegations of espionage and sabotage. We'll give you the background. And we'll say farewell to Magny-Cours, a location down the years that's been short on glamour, but strong on action. And it weighs over 30 kilos, it's worth £20,000, and it can be tracked by satellite. It's a book, and it's our competition prize. Details later.
And a reminder of a Drivers' Championship that could change very significantly this afternoon. Alonso 10 points behind Lewis Hamilton, but he's back on row 5. Massa on pole has 19 points to make up on the championship leader. Raikkonen is a further 7 points back. This is Ferrari's chance to make some inroads into McLaren's domination, but it's also a great chance for Hamilton to stretch his World Championship lead. And Mark Blundell, for Hamilton, there's no hint of pressure or fatigue. He seems to be looking forward to this race as much as any.
You know, we shared some time with him last night, Steve, and we just chilled out around a barbecue. He is so cool at the moment. He's so confident. I really don't think anything's affecting him whatsoever. The fact that his teammates way down the grid added to the situation of him being on the front row, he feels super confident, and I think he's got a great chance again to win this Grand Prix.
Yes, Fernando Alonso back on row 5 after those gearbox problems in qualifying yesterday. He was praying for rain after qualifying. He's got his wish to some degree, but what do you make of the conditions here?
Well, I think that, you know, it's very variable at the moment. We've seen rain already today for the other races. We've seen also a surface which has been laid, new surface down for about 7% of this circuit. The Porsche race previous, very slippery conditions. If it happens in the F1 race, we could be in for something quite thrilling. And I think Alonso, it could play into his hands. Fuel load aboard what he has. He didn't manage to burn off that fuel in qualifying. He could make his way through and get back on the podium.
The front row of the grid is a great place to be for Lewis Hamilton. He's had a couple of weeks to absorb all the glory of those back-to-back Grand Prix wins in Montreal and Indianapolis. He's been busy in those 2 weeks, as Louise Goodman reports, including a fantastic reception at the rather rain-soaked Goodwood Festival of Speed.
Goodwood provided a suitably regal stage for Britain's homecoming king to demonstrate the skills that have catapulted him to the top of Formula One in such a short space of time. Lewis has become the new media darling, and there was a huge press turnout at a sponsor event in London. So how has Hamilton's homecoming been?
A huge response from obviously the newspapers, the media, and there's photo shoot, people just requesting lots of different things, and I've had a lot of fan mail. It's great to see some of the letters, people are really inspired by what's going on, and so it's great, but it really is the fast lane.
You have, it seems to me, just brought a new audience of people to Formula One. I mean, Pharrell Williams having a conversation with Ron Dennis, you've got to admit that's quite unusual, isn't it?
Oh, that's cool, isn't it? How cool is Pharrell? He's a cool guy, and I invited him for the weekend, and it's just great to see he came. I met Kanye West this year. I've met Beyonce. These are people I watch on MTV and I admire so much, and now I'm chilling with them, and it's great to see, and that's good to have a new audience. We need more and more people involved in it.
When it comes to the racing, you keep on raising the bar, don't you? You keep on achieving more. Are you putting yourself under extra pressure doing that, or do you actually feel any pressure in the first place?
That's not the plan, to raise the bar but that's obviously what's happening. And now to get another, that people won't be happy with anything less than a win. So that makes it extremely difficult. But it's the same for me. But I'll be pushing 110% to make sure I do get some more wins.
And the key for Lewis Hamilton is that he's enjoying everything that's happening on the track and everything that's happening off the track. But how difficult is it for a Formula One driver to sort of maintain that balance?
I think it's quite easy for Lewis at the moment because he's never known anything different, Steve. So everything that comes along at the minute is a new experience. He's taking it in his stride. He's super confident, as I said. But the great thing about Lewis, he enjoys every single minute, whether it be in the car or out the car, and it shows. And everybody around him is upbeat and enjoying the experience.
And the other problem, of course, is managing expectations. He expects to win every time. Expected to get pole position yesterday, but it wasn't going to be a third straight pole here at Magny-Cours. But it was close. It was the next best thing. James Allen looks back at all the details of yesterday's qualifying.
The French Grand Prix is the time of year when most people bring along upgrades. Ferrari and Honda had major upgrades here this weekend, and the big question was, would it improve their pace in qualifying? At the start of the qualifying hour, David Coulthard was in trouble. A gearbox problem. He lines up 16th on the grid. Now, it may not look it from 12th place on the grid, but for Jenson Button, things are definitely looking up. The Honda is quicker, about 3 or 4 tenths of a second faster, and he was only half a second off the BMW in the second part of qualifying. Into the knockout then, and Alonso immediately in trouble. Only did 1 lap before a puff of blue smoke indicated problems. The gearbox needed replacing. Alonso is 10th on the grid. Robert Kubica, bouncing back from his horrific accident in Canada, a career best 4th on the grid for the BMW driver. Pole then disputed between Hamilton and the 2 Ferraris. Massa struck first, Hamilton responded but missed out by 7/100ths of a second. He lines up on the front row of the grid with Raikkonen just behind him. But the headline from qualifying is that Ferrari are back in business. So let's take a look at the grid for what promises to be a thrilling French Grand Prix. On the front row, his 4th pole of 2007, Felipe Massa, with Lewis Hamilton alongside him. Raikkonen and Kubica, career best 4th on the grid for the pole. Fisichella, Renault looking faster here, Kovalainen is alongside him. Then it's Heidfeld and Jarno Trulli making up row 4. Row 5, Nico Rosberg and Alonso, who's had to change a gearbox. Ralf Schumacher just misses out on the top 10. Jenson Button in the improved Honda is 12th. Barrichello's 13th, ahead of Mark Webber. Red Bull misfiring in qualifying after being quick in practice. Speed and Coulthard make up row 8. Liuzzi and Wirtz make up row 9. Row 10, Anthony Davidson. Everybody else has overtaken the Super Aguris now. Albers is ahead of Sutil, who's 21st. And Takuma Sato goes to the back of the grid for his misdemeanors in Indianapolis.
The second try, I just tried to do a lot, and I made some small mistakes. But very happy to be back on fighting. Very happy to put the car in the front.
Went very smoothly for me. I had clean laps, pushing as hard as I could, as always. And it was just good fun. And I got second. I mean, geez, I would never expected to be on at any point to be on the front row this year.
It's never perfect, but the way we're working and try to improve, and I think so we make a progress all the time. So hopefully in the race we can have a strong result.
The weather will play a good part on it. I think some of the teams we have a forecast rain for tomorrow. If it's rainy, we know how the wet races are, and I can take a lot of points. If it's normal race, the goal is to finish 5th, 6th, whatever. I need points.
Fernando Alonso gazing at the skies 24 hours ago. He wants rain, hasn't got it at the moment. The skies are clearing. There's the odd dark cloud on the horizon. Wouldn't be a problem to have wet conditions from Felipe Massa's point of view on pole position either.
I don't think no problem whatsoever, Steve, with wet condition with Massa. He's there on pole position. He leads into the first corner, hopefully for him. Doesn't have any spray, doesn't have any risk of anybody spinning in front of him. Bigger problem for Alonso, though, in the middle of that pack there. Something could go on, another spinner, you know, visibility issues if it is wet. But at the minute, it looks like we've got, you know, stable weather. I think Ferrari could be strong with Raikkonen. He looked so strong over the course of the weekend in his pace. And I think he's got a heavier fuel load on than what Massa has, so it could play out into that first stint.
So it doesn't really surprise you that it was Massa on pole and not Kimi Raikkonen?
Not at all, because if you look at Raikkonen and look at actually his sector times, his sectors would have put him on pole by a big margin if he hadn't made two critical mistakes. And I think if he can carry that consistency through, we could have something out of him at last.
Well, it was Massa's fourth pole position of this season so far. We can show you exactly how he did it with guidance from Martin Brundle.
Magny-Cours for the French Grand Prix, 2.75 miles of billiard table smooth tarmac, 75 seconds is a good hot lap around here. Let's take a look at Massa's rather unspectacular pole position lap, a short pit straight up to 170 miles an hour for turn 1 and 2. He's tweaking the brake balance bar already because this is easily full throttle into the beginning of turn 3, down 2 gears. Car feels at sea momentarily, now he feels the grip and he's away. Bring it up to 185 miles an hour. Look at the fins in front of him on the chassis. This Ferrari is working so much better with the new pieces. Look for a brake marker boards on the left-hand side. 100 metres, hit the brakes hard, down 5 gears, 50 miles an hour on the apex. Squeeze the throttle on, traction control applying just exactly the right amount of power. Tweaks the brake balance bar one more time. Up then to 170 before the 120 mile an hour Nürburgring chicane. Incredible direction change. The tricky 180-degree corner, he's locked the front wheel. He just kisses the apex where he needs to, though. Got away with that. Building up to 175 miles an hour again. The unsighted Imola chicane, 130 through the heart of this. They hardly brake, just using the downshift to slow the car down. Chateau d'Eau, 70 miles an hour. Look, he just turns the wheel once in and once out. What a different Ferrari from 2 weeks ago in Indianapolis. 170 miles an hour down the hill towards Lycée. A tricky 80 mile an hour corner. You can sweep wide through the exit. Now you've just got to fly across these 2 curves. Back end trying to step out. Finish line is immediately there. He's on pole.
Ferrari, of course, yet to turn that decent qualifying performance into a decent race result, but it's already looking like a rather better weekend. What makes you wonder that the Ferrari recovery isn't quite back on course is exactly what's happening behind the scenes. There's still doubts and concerns about Kimi Raikkonen's form and his consistency. This is the final work going on Kimi's car behind me at the moment. And also in the last couple of weeks we had the news that the Italian police are investigating the senior race engineer of Ferrari, Nigel Stepney, amid all kinds of allegations and rumours about sabotage and espionage as well. Ted Kravitz has been trying to make sense of what's going on.
During the glory days at Ferrari, Nigel Stepney was known as the Enforcer. He was largely responsible for whipping the Italians into a slick championship-winning team. He recently announced he wanted to leave, and now finds himself charged with sabotage.
A few days before the Monaco Grand Prix, we found something not proper in our factory. We asked the police to make an investigation, and we had from the police enough evidence to bring an action to the court of Modena against Nigel. And also there is an internal disciplinary procedure against him still ongoing.
The charges centre around an alleged tampering of a fuel rig ahead of the Monaco Grand Prix. Stories in the press of suspicious white powder around the rig and in the fuel tank are understood to be false and do not form part of the charge. In any case, such interference would be difficult to achieve.
The FIA, every session, are taking fuel samples from lots of cars, so they'd immediately know if there was a problem, and different batches of fuel, you'd have to contaminate a huge amount. So I can't see the sabotage thing being anything that's likely to have happened. For me, that's too incredible.
Stepney is currently on unapproved leave in Asia. He remains a Ferrari employee and significantly denies all the accusations against him.
He was always doing a good job. It was always important for the team. So for me, it's a big surprise to see these things.
I don't really want to
wanna get involved too much because I don't know exactly what's been going on. But what I heard has happened. I think so. He's much happier that he's not involved anymore.
He's a long-time guy in Formula One, worked and been part of their very successful team. So again, I'm sure I'd be surprised if anything had happened.
Nigel Stepney has held talks with other F1 teams about a job, while Ferrari is continuing with its case. It's a bizarre end to the Ferrari dream team.
At the moment it's a legal case ongoing, and it does not allow me to comment on that, so I'm going to be very quiet about that.
But you can confirm that this is a real case and not some attempt to blacken Nigel's name?
I mean, so you just have to listen what I mentioned before. It's a legal case going on, and I'm not going to comment any further.
Whatever the rights and wrongs of the case, and we'll learn more over the course of the next few weeks, this must have such a destabilising effect on the team at a crucial point of the season.
I think it's definitely got an impact, Steve. You know, obviously because the guy, Nigel Stepney's been working with a lot of teammates here. They must all be thinking, has he really been involved or has he not? But this is big news in Italy. It's front page stuff in the newspapers, big in the media. I'm not so sure what's really happened, but if there's a legal case and a police investigation, there must be some depth there to this story altogether.
Nigel Stepney and Ross Brawn, of course, were always very close, worked very closely together. Ross Brawn taking a year out of the sport. Is this the end of the Ferrari dream team?
I don't think so, because if you look at what's going on at the moment, they're actually, you know, on the ascent. They've got a car now which is on the front row in pole position, and they've got some real progress being made over the last week, 10 days even. So I think that Ferrari are getting stronger, and they're fighting now for the Constructors' Championship, which is also an important element of this whole situation. McLaren will know that, and they're on the toes with it.
Well, on to slightly happier things, a little further down the pit lane at BMW. It's extraordinary to think that it's just 3 weeks ago that Robert Kubica survived this incredible crash in the Canadian Grand Prix. Not only that, but he's returned to racing here at the French Grand Prix, and his fourth place qualifying position yesterday was the best of his career so far. Kubica is back.
You know, was very hard accident, but nothing happens in the end in my mind, so that's most important. The car is working well, so you see the results, and I'm very happy, of course, because it has been you know, tough time a bit, but I was confident, and you know, it's good that I'm back so soon in the car, and it's good that finally the car is working well with no problems and no balance problems, so it's very good.
He's not one of the most flamboyant fellas down the pit lane, but my goodness, what character he's shown over the last couple of weeks.
Great depth of character, but you know, that's all part and parcel of the makeup of the Grand Prix driver. Law of averages says you will have a big accident. He's had this big crash now. He's come right back. Very strong lap, very strong performance, and I expect a great race from him. But these things happen. It's you know, it's not an abnormal situation to be in.
He doesn't completely ignore it. Does it have any kind of effect when he gets back and starts racing again this afternoon?
I don't think so, Steve. You know, that first lap that he would take him back in a race car again, that would have been the big effect in his mind. Do I not want to do this job, basically? He's got over that, and he's proved his point. That will be at the back of his mind in a distant memory.
Now, what have we learnt in the last few weeks about the character and the racing character, the competitive edge of Fernando Alonso, especially in that amazing challenge on Lewis Hamilton in the US Grand Prix in Indianapolis?
We learned that, you know, Alonso is a guy who's a little bit emotional. Two-time world champion, has got great depth there to draw on and great experience, but he's showing some emotion outside of the car. And I don't know what really is going on. If he's trying to signal to the outside world that things are not going his way. But, you know, made a move with Hamilton, didn't come off. He's making some mistakes, and we don't see mistakes made by him very often, but more and more they're creeping out.
And it's his composure that's really under examination at the moment. I mean, it wasn't really tested en route to 2 World Championship titles, but by the form of his teammate, that's the big test for Alonso, isn't it?
You know, rest assured, this is the toughest teammate that Alonso has had in Formula One. Lewis Hamilton makes no mistakes. He put him under immense pressure. Every time he steps out of his car, he's got a big grin on his face. Alonso steps out, he seems to be a troubled man. But don't write the guy off. He knows how to win world championships. This day will be a big day for him. It could be a turning point in this world championship, full stop.
He has had some technical problems this weekend, Alonso, with McLaren, which is quite a rare thing. He's also been a little bit ragged in the last 2 days out there on the track.
He has indeed. This weekend hasn't flowed for him. It hasn't been good for him to get a good clean lap under his belt. He's had a few technical problems, 45, 50 minutes of lost mileage and lost experience in setup. He's on a heavy fuel load because he never got it burnt off in qualifying. if the weather changes, we might see it play into his hands. If not, I don't think he's going to get a great result, but it'd be a huge race for him to turn one out.
OK, let's move still further down the pit lane where Ted Kravitz is with Gerhard Berger.
Yeah, Stephen, it's just starting to slightly spit with rain down here. But Gerhard, I want to ask you a bit about Ferrari. We're talking about the dream team disbanding. Is that your view, or do you think Ross is coming back to that team?
Well, you have to ask Ross. I don't know. I mean, obviously, they've been a great group together with Ross, Roy, Michael, Chandot. They've been extremely successful. It's always difficult to repeat something, and I'm sure everybody of these boys is aware how difficult it is to do it in a different group. But on the other side, one of the really strong guys was Ross, and he would be extremely helpful for Ferrari.
What's it like driving around here in the rain, to change the subject?
Well, I think you have a good runoff area, so that helps a little bit, because in the wet you are usually quite sure that you're once off track. But for us watching it, I think it could be more fun to see a wet race for the drivers. Obviously, it's always very difficult to be in the rain and to be driving behind other cars. But again, it's a very safe circuit, and that helps a little bit.
Thanks, Gerhard.
And some of the forecasts are suggesting a 30 or 40% chance of a wet race here. And the car's about to leave this Grand Prix pit lane for the last time at Magny-Cours. This seems certain to be the last French Grand Prix at this circuit. We're saying goodbye to a fairly tortuous journey to get here each year, some fairly dodgy accommodation as well, but also to a circuit that's produced some outstanding action. And the French Grand Prix is very much part of the fabric of Formula One.
France is the birthplace of motorsport, and the inaugural Grand Prix here in 1906 marked the first chapter in the country's rich racing heritage. Since the World Championship began in 1950, 7 different venues have hosted the French Grand Prix, but its present home in Magny-Cours lacks the infrastructure for a world-class event.
Lots of things have been promised to Bernie Ecclestone and to Formula One, and nothing really happened in the end. The Grand Prix used to lose a lot of money, so the French Federation took over, and this year it might lose a lot of money as well. So it's getting very, very difficult for the organizer to not to make money, but not to lose any money.
German and British drivers have won 14 of the 16 races held at Magny-Cours, including Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who mastered stormy conditions in 1999, and Michael Schumacher, who won his 5th championship title here in 2002. It's a tough track for overtaking, as David Coulthard found out.
Do that one more time, he says, and, well, other gestures.
Then obviously I was a little bit upset with the tactics Michael was using to keep me behind him, and frustrated, I gave him the middle finger, which is totally irrational behaviour, given that, of course, being behind him, he wouldn't see me. And even if he could see me, then I'm not really sure he would have understood, because I'm not sure what the signal means in Germany.
So will Magny-Cours be missed? Well, not by sponsors and spectators who fail to warm to the charms of the rural Burgundy location, but the track does have some fans.
I know that for a lot of spectators and other people who work in Formula One, it is not the most exciting place to be, but for a driver it's fine.
People do complain there's nothing to do outside motor racing, but I mean, we're here to work and not to enjoy ourselves too much, I guess.
I think the circuit itself is good fun to drive, and it's quite technical. On the other hand, we know that it's not very convenient to arrive here because it's in the middle of France. But it's not convenient either go to Singapore because it's 14 hours flight. So at the end of the day, I think we will miss Magny-Cours.
If we don't race anymore here, it would be nice to race in some other place in France. Why not?
It would be fantastic to have a racing close to Paris or close to some big town.
What the French Federation wants to do is to forget 2008 and to come back with a brand new Grand Prix in Paris or in the Paris area in 2009.
Well, we might not miss Magny-Cours, but we certainly need a French Grand Prix on the calendar, don't we?
Oh, we have to have a French Grand Prix. It's, like the British Grand Prix. It's one of the traditional races. If we go to Paris, that'd be spectacular, but I think there's some way off.
Final preparations here at Ferrari around Kimi Räikkönen's car. We've dealt with all the issues that are going on behind the scenes here. Much speculation about the future role within the team of Michael Schumacher, of course. We might get more news on that over the next few months. He is here as part of the Ferrari party at Magny-Cours, but he was also entertaining another huge sporting personality in the Ferrari camp yesterday.
This was the first time Michael had driven on a Grand Prix track since his retirement, and he convinced his passenger in the Ferrari FXX, Zinedine Zidane, that he hasn't lost his touch.
Bonne sensation.
sensation très forte. Je faisais un petit peu le malin avant de monter dans la voiture et puis après ça a été très difficile dedans, mais en même temps il y avait Schumacher qui était à côté de moi.
I was watching him and I was making sure that he's all right, but he seemed to enjoy, although he was a bit tensed, I have to say.
J'aime Alonso, j'aime Hamilton qui est en train de... J'aime tous les pilotes, j'aime les pilotes de chez Ferrari, Massa. Enfin, moi j'aime la course.
But what about Michael? How's he enjoying retirement?
I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, there's loads of new, interesting things that I can experience now, because before you were so much focused on the one thing that it didn't allow you to open your view on many other subjects that happen inside the team, actually. And now I have the freedom and the time to do this, and the experience I take at the moment is very interesting.
Do you think Felipe and Kimi can challenge for the championship by the end of the year? After all, this time last year, I seem to remember we were talking about you not being able to challenge, and then you came back and there was nothing in it.
That's the point. I thought about that when I saw certain things happening this year, and why not? I mean, I had an unfortunate situation obviously last year with an engine failure towards the end. Otherwise, it would have been a lot more close. And the season is long.
What do you think might be the future role for Michael Schumacher here at Ferrari, Mark? It must be a little bit more than just giving retired footballers a bit of a thrill.
Yeah, I think there's a possibility that he may go into a team principal role. He may come back and drive. Who knows of Michael Schumacher? The guy's still young. He's still got a lot to offer. But, you know, he's been at a lot of races recently, and he's obviously got a good input. And Ferrari take note of that input, and that's the important element.
And he's certainly had an influence on this man, Felipe Massa, hasn't he?
He has indeed. He's had a great influence on Massa. Massa has matured so much over the last couple of seasons. Very impressed with the way that he's driving. Very impressed at the way that he goes about his business within the team. He's consistent. Some of his laps that he's turning in qualifying are spectacular. Hence, we got him on pole here for today's race. But he's definitely doing a great job.
He qualifies well. This is his fourth pole position of the season, but he's the only guy so far this season to fail to convert a pole position into race victory. That happened in the Malaysian Grand Prix, under pressure from Lewis.
Yep, under pressure from Lewis at that. And I think, you know, these guys, Lewis, Hamilton and Felipe Massa, may be the guys who are going to end up fighting for this World Championship this year. There's a great possibility of that. We'll have to wait and see what happens today. But I think Massa is oozing with confidence. He now knows that Ferrari made progress with the car, and I think he knows he's got a car underneath him with consistency and pace to win this Grand Prix.
Even including Fernando Alonso, do you think it might be Massa who emerges as the principal title threat to Lewis Hamilton?
At the moment, I think that is the case, because Kimi Raikkonen, unfortunately, just hasn't quite gelled with the car and the team. But saying that, I think today could be the turning point for Kimi and Ferrari, because I do feel that they've got something what they're hiding in fuel load.
It's been such a tough couple of months for Ferrari at Monaco, Montreal and Indianapolis as well. How much do they need success here?
They need a lot of success, because I feel the team need a little bit of a lift. But they also don't understand not winning, and that's what they've done for so long with Michael Schumacher. And I think they want to be doing something with the Constructors' Championship, because McLaren are running away with it at present.
Fernando Alonso just leaving the McLaren garage alongside us, without the race conditions that he was hoping for, but there must be a question mark in all the teams' minds about tyres and how this race is going to unfold in terms of the weather.
Definitely there's a big question mark over the weather. They've all got their own weather information systems. They've all got different answers when you ask them. Alonso's bigger question mark will be, is his car been repaired properly? Because the gearbox failure yesterday is now going out and doing some exploration laps, and hopefully he'll be understanding what the balance of the car's like with the fuel load on, and if he's got all the gears as he needs.
We're battling the sound that's coming from Felipe Massa's end of the garage, but it's a glorious sound, isn't it?
It's a fantastic sound, and I think the Ferrari engine is probably one of the most glorious ones to listen to.
Raikkonen goes out first, followed by Felipe Massa heading to pole position for the fourth time this season. But right alongside will be Britain's Lewis Hamilton in the McLaren. We'll be out on the grid with them very shortly, getting all kinds of pre-race opinions. We've also got question mark, we've also got the ITV F1 competition, but we'll be hearing the pre-race thoughts of Lewis Hamilton when we return in just a couple of minutes. Magny-Cours in the heart of France and for so long at the heart of French motorsport, but we're now into the final countdown ahead of its final French Grand Prix. But it's a season of firsts for Britain's Lewis Hamilton, who shares the front row of the grid with Felipe Massa. And in recent weeks, it's been his first pole position and most significantly, his first experience of race victory, plus that experience of all the applause at the Goodwood Festival of Speed just last weekend. And he's put himself in a great race position once again. And yesterday evening, we talked about his prospects and other things. Lewis, you knew that Ferrari were going to come back strongly. How do you judge what you've achieved in qualifying?
I think it went extremely well, and it was a good battle out between me and both of the Ferraris. But obviously it was extremely close. I do believe we had the car to be on pole, and I made a slight mistake on my last lap, which is inevitable. You can't be perfect every time, but I know tomorrow we've got a very good strategy, so going into that we need to make sure we push and try to beat them.
And Goodwood, what was the most surprising aspect of that day and the most enjoyable aspect for you?
Goodwood was my first opportunity to really get a feel of the support and the feeling in the UK. And there were 65,000 people there. It was raining quite heavily, but they still came out, 65,000 people.
What was that moment like when you stepped out on the balcony of Goodwood House and saw what you saw?
Well, I wasn't expecting it. They said, come out here, so I put on my hat and I came out and I couldn't see anyone because you got the railings, and then all of a sudden there's this, God knows how many hundreds of people were down there and standing in the rain with their umbrella, looking up, trying to wait for me, and I was just blown away, and they all cheered. And it's just every weekend, every day throughout the year, my life is obviously flipped upside down, and I'm on another planet. It's just, it doesn't seem real, but I just got to make sure I put a smile on my face, keep on enjoying it, which I am, and really get the most out of it.
But tomorrow we've got a race, and you said a few weeks ago how much you would relish the chance to sit on the front row alongside someone like Felipe Massa instead of Fernando Alonso. Regrettably, Fernando is back, but we've got a race on. We don't have to talk about team tactics or team orders or anything like that. How much are you relishing that prospect?
I'm really relishing it. As I said, I know we've got a good strategy, and I truly believe we've got the fastest car. Some places you actually don't mind being second, because for a track like this, you've got the long sweeping Estoril bend, turn 3, and you've got that long straight up into that hairpin where anything can happen. People can get up the inside of you. And so, although it's nice to be on pole, Felipe is actually in a worse position than me, because I can slipstream him up the straight, and I strongly believe I can get him. So tomorrow, that's going to be my target tomorrow. Get a good clean start. If I don't get him off the line, my aim is to get him into turn 5.
Well, a few million people will be urging you on, that's for sure, and just keep it going tomorrow.
I will do. Thank you.
So refreshing. He's not shy of talking about race tactics and what's to come, but this is the time when everyone is just a wee bit concerned about what lies ahead. Let's go swiftly down to Louise, who's with the Red Bull team boss, Christian Horner.
Yeah, down here at Red Bull, they're a wee bit concerned about David Coulthard. He's had to make an extra unscheduled stop in the garage. What's the problem, Christian?
No, it was just a precautionary check after the gearbox change that he's had overnight. We just wanted to make sure that all the electronics are talking to each other. He was a little bit concerned about the clutch on an outlap, but there's no issues. Everything looks okay.
Everything's going to be fine for the race? You're 100% confident?
Well, obviously, we've had a few too many issues with the transmission over the season so far. So key for us today is be there at the finish. The car has good pace, and who knows, with variable conditions, we should be able to get somewhere near the points.
Thanks, Christian.
More to come from the grid in just a few minutes, but now the ITV F1 competition as promised, and question mark as well, details of which, along with everything else that's going on in F1, you can access via the ITV F1 website. Question mark is where you can put your own F1 questions directly to Mark Blundell, and he'll answer them in our race build-up, as he does now.
This week's question comes from Jeremy Austin of North London. He asks, what role does a driver's manager play? I've got one of the biggest names in management from the Formula 1 pit lane, David Robertson, represents Kimi Räikkönen.
Thanks for that very nice compliment, Mark. Our job is to maximise his income, and that comprises of probably 3 different things. 1 is to negotiate with the team. 2 is to make sure that we get the best possible income from sponsorship. And 3, to make sure that his investments are good for him too. And then, of course, you have to look after all his other interests, his houses, his boats, his planes, or whatever. Different guys have different things that they like. But as far as Kimi is concerned, he likes speed, so he likes to race whatever he can get into. And that's basically the sum total of a manager.
Okay, well, I think you've got one of the sharpest minds in the Formula One management of today, and Kimi Raikkonen is renowned for being on the biggest retainer in F1 at present.
So good.
Sounds like the second best job in Formula One. Now the ITV F1 competitioner, David Nicol of Northants, he'll be looking for a manager. He's won himself a ride in a two-seater Grand Prix car after correctly naming Graham Hill as Damon's father in our competition 2 weeks ago, and there's an amazing prize on offer this time.
We're giving you a chance to win an exclusive copy of the F1 Opus Champions book, limited to only 100 copies worldwide and valued at £20,000. It's a true collector's item and features giant Polaroid photographs of Formula One greats as never seen before. The Champions Edition is signed by all 18 living F1 World Champions, from Jack Brabham to Fernando Alonso. It comes in a carbon fibre clamshell presentation case and has a microchip embedded in the spine, so each copy can be tracked by satellite. To be in with a chance of winning this unique prize courtesy of Kraken Opus, just answer this simple question. Who was the last Frenchman to become Formula One World Champion? Was it A, Olivier Panis, B, Alain Prost, or C, René Arnoux? The number to call is 0901 293 2020, or text F1 plus your answer A, B or C to 63337. Calls cost £1 per entry from a BT landline. Calls from other networks and mobiles may be higher. Text will cost £1 plus the standard network rate. Lines close just before midnight this Thursday, the 5th of July, and entrants must be 18 or over.
It is an astonishing prize and a unique volume, to say the least. Now, we've seen grit, sand, cement going down on the race surface there. Mark, it indicates oil.
It does indeed, and that's going to be a bit of an issue for Kimi in the Ferrari, Massa up there, Hamilton, all those guys at the front, especially Massa if he gets off of the line. He's going to be the first one to travel across it. He's going to have no reference of grip there now because of the sand and the cement dust over the oil. There's a lot of oil gone down, not the great start.
And there's Fernando Alonso just leaving the grid, but he'll be taking his place on row 5, qualifying 10th after gearbox problems yesterday, won here in 2005. The man alongside him on that 5th row will be Nico Rosberg in the Williams, and we can hear from him down on the grid.
Well, Nico, what's the track looking like on the formation lap to the grid?
It looks completely dry at the moment, yeah. So should be all right for the first part of the race. And then maybe if it rains, I don't know, it could bring some excitement into it.
You're right alongside Fernando Alonso, and he's on a 3-stop strategy, we think. How's that going to work out with you?
I don't know, we'll see from the start. I mean, I'm not going to let him pass, that's for sure. We'll just see how it goes.
Have a good one.
Lewis Hamilton, 4th consecutive front row position. Father Anthony taking him off to a quiet corner. He's not got lured into grid interviews yet, but that might yet happen with Martin Brundle at Silverstone. Anthony Davidson there back on row 10. And he struggles in qualifying, but he's shown consistent form in Sunday afternoon racing so far. He's classified as a finisher in every race so far this season, but he needs better results, and he needs to move up that grid just a bit.
Yeah, I think he'd like to be a little bit further up the grid, but he has been putting in some strong results in the races, as you say, Steve, and I think he's showing great progress.
Jenson Button just missed out on going through to the last section of qualifying yesterday, and he'll be on row 6. Can Honda get points at last today? Let's hear from Jenson.
Jenson, you've got quite a few upgrades on the car this weekend. Are they doing the job for you?
Well, in qualifying we weren't that much quicker compared to the rest, but we noticed on Friday there was our race pace that was better than qualifying, so should be an exciting race, especially the circuit's very green, it's a bit of all down, so it should be a fun race, and hopefully we can sort of get in front of the Toyotas and the Williams.
Do you expect that oil to cause you problems?
I don't know, they put cement dust down on it, but on my viewing lap I went off on the oil. I just wanted to see how quick I could go through there, and the oil caught me and I went off the circuit, so it's pretty slippery, but I'm sure everyone knows it's going to be like that in the race.
Well, don't do that in the race. We'll speak to you later.
And he sounds quite upbeat, Jenson Button, as the clouds continue to gather around Magny-Cours, but no immediate prospect of rain. The forecast, though, is suggesting get ready for it. The rain might not be too far away. But Jenson, we were saying upbeat there, and a lot of revisions on that Honda. Didn't quite show in qualifying yesterday, but he's handled the frustrations of the last few weeks so well.
He's done remarkably well. I think he's just being physiological about the situation of Honda. He's trying to make something good out of something quite bad, and Honda are understanding as well, because they're putting every effort in to try and get a good car for him and Rubens Barrichello. It's a situation now where Jenson has to make something good out of what he has, and he's already been around the viewing lap, as you said, and been off the road. So there's one guy who knows how quick he can go through that chicane, and it's not as quick as what he tried.
And he's been saying this weekend that it's quality points that Honda want, but they're at the stage, we were saying, where just any points will be gratefully received. But they need to feel that they're moving forward.
Yeah, they do. And, points are very valuable for these teams, Steve. There's a lot of financial reward. They need to climb up the Constructors' Championship. And Honda have been very strong over the last couple of seasons, and we felt that they'd be a team what would be looking for wins this year, and it hasn't happened at all.
Well, we've got an all Renault third row. Giancarlo Fisichella just out qualifying his new teammate, Heikki Kovalainen. Rookie season for him as well. Let's hear from Heikki.
Yeah, and it's been a very good weekend for the team. Your best all-round qualifying position so far this season, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good to see that we are clearly making steps forward, and of course we are not where we want to be. We want to win races and we want to get back on the top, but I think we've turned around in another direction, a good direction again.
But for the moment, Sauber BMW are your target, and you're getting a lot closer to that target. You've split those two cars on the grid today, haven't you?
Yeah, it's got to be our first target for this race, of course, but if things go well and if we seem to have a pace, then why not to try to chase the other ones, but trying to do maximum whatever we can and see where we end up at the end.
Big race for the team, Renault's last French Grand Prix.
You never know if it's going to be last. It might be last in Magny-Cours, but I certainly hope there's another one, in the coming years in France. It's important for our team. It's important for our fans. Let's hope that there will be at least a French Grand Prix wherever it will be.
Thanks, Heikki.
Thank you.
Waiting patiently alongside pole position under an umbrella, which is serving as a sunshade at the moment. It might well be protecting him from the rain quite shortly. Felipe Massa won in Bahrain and Barcelona, his fourth pole position of the season. And what would be his thoughts, his tactics off that pole position with Lewis Hamilton sandwiched between those two Ferraris?
He's going to know that Lewis is quite aggressive off the start, so he'll want to make sure that that's something that he checks out. But he's going to also have the problem with the oil down. He's going to be first one across that.
Swiftly back to row 4, Toyota's Jarno Trulli.
Jarno, you've always been a big fan of the French Grand Prix. You've raced for a French team. Are you sad to see this race going from the calendar?
Well, that's part of Formula One. That's the way it is. We don't know if it's going yet. Definitely I will miss it, because I had a lot of supporters here in France, because I've been driving and been before for some French teams.
What would be a good result for you today?
Scoring point. That will be enough.
We'll keep our fingers crossed. Thanks.
And everyone in that midfield battle is just looking at scoring points, because it is so tight and so much could happen, especially in the race conditions that we might possibly have today.
Yeah, and I think they're all looking for points to say, because there's so much value attached to those. If they can just climb up into some point scoring positions and get in the Constructors' Championship run, it makes so much difference to them the year after. So there's a lot of pressure on the guys in the middle of the grid there to try and produce something and have something to count for at the end of this season.
There's Lewis, who was brilliant in GP2 here a year ago, and likes the circuit. And to hear him talking so refreshingly about what he was going to do to Massa around the first couple of corners, well, he might have to revise those tactics just a little. But if that was Alonso on pole, he might not be talking quite the same way.
But I think that gives you an insight into Lewis Hamilton. That just shows you that he's already thinking about the start, and he thinks about what could be the permutations come turn 1, turn 2 or turn 3. So Lewis consistently thinking about and running through that race in his head before he even gets out into the circuit.
We've got a lot of drivers' viewpoints, but Martin Brundle will be back on the grid in our build-up to the British Grand Prix at Silverstone next weekend. But here in France, a race in prospect that's full of so many unpredictable elements. It's a different kind of examination for Lewis Hamilton, who's won the last 2 races back-to-back. It's Ferrari there, eager to get back to winning form. And it's Fernando Alonso mounting an attack possibly from row 5. And it's the weather as well.
And we'll be just a few minutes away from the start of this French Grand Prix, the last French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours, when we return.
The people that support me are knowledgeable professionals. They manage the most challenging tasks smoothly. Each member of the team contributes, whether in Amsterdam or in Tokyo. That's the key to success in banking, insurance, asset management, and Formula One. And that's why, as one of 60 million customers, I trust ING.